Welcome to this prompting masterclass, how to prompt and how not to. Most people don't have an AI problem. They have a prompting problem. They type 6 words, get something mediocre back, and decide the tool is overrated. But the tool was fine. It just had nothing to work with. So today, I'm doing something specific. 13 prompts. For each one, I'll show you the version people actually type, the version they should type, and exactly why the second one wins. No theory, no prompt engineering secrets, just rewrites you can steal. Let's go. Before the examples, one mental model, because every fix in this video is a version of this. Claude is not a search box. Search boxes take keywords. Claude is closer to a very capable colleague who just walked into your office, sat down, and knows absolutely nothing about your situation. Brilliant, but zero context. So what does that colleague need? 4 things. Context. Who you are, who this is for, what's going on. Specifics. How long, what format, what tone. Examples. One sample beats a paragraph of description every time. An iteration. The first answer is a draft, not a verdict. That's it. That's the whole video. Everything from here is those 4 things applied to a real prompt you've probably typed this week.
Number 1. The no context prompt. This is the most common mistake by a mile. Write a blog post about productivity. Look at that and ask, who's reading it? What's the angle? How long? What's the tone? None of that is in there. So the model does the only thing it can. It averages. It gives you the most generic possible productivity post because that's the safest answer to a question with no constraints. And you look at it and think, wow, this is bland AI slop. It's not slop. It's an average because you asked an average question. Now the rewrite. Count what changed. Audience, freelance designers. A specific pain, busy but unproductive. A real angle. Time blocking fails for creative work. Propose energy-based scheduling instead. Length, 900 words. Tone, conversational, first person, 1 anecdote. And a guardrail, no numbered listicle. Here's the test I want you to remember. If 10 different people could have sent your prompt, it's too vague. 10 people could send the first one. Only you could send the second. Number 2. And this might be the most typed useless prompt on earth. Make it better. Better how? You know what you mean. The model doesn't. So it guesses. And it usually guesses by making the thing longer and more formal, which is almost always the exact 2 things you didn't want. Compare that to actual feedback. Notice the structure. What to cut, what to keep, what to change. The cut is specific. Paragraph 2, and here's why. The keep matters just as much. Keep the opening line. I like it. Stops it from rewriting the one part that already worked. And the tone note is concrete. Fewer hedges. And it even names the hedge words. 3 sentences of real notes beats 1 adjective every single time. Number 3. And I want to be careful here because this one comes from a good instinct. Hi, can you help me with my resume? Thanks so much. That's a lovely message to send a human. But watch what happens. The model says, of course, go ahead and paste it in. You've burned an entire turn and gained nothing. You're being polite to a colleague who's still standing in the doorway waiting for the actual task. The fix is to front-load everything. Resume in, job description in, the gap you're bridging, coordinator to senior brand manager, and what to emphasize. Plus, one thing I want you to steal. Don't invent responsibilities I didn't list. On a resume, that guardrail matters. You do not want a confident model helpfully embellishing your work history. And to be clear, you can still say please. I say please. Just say please and the task in the same message. Number 4. The everything prompt. Help me start a business. Give me a name, logo ideas, a business plan, a marketing strategy, and pricing. 5 deep tasks in one breath. And here's the thing people miss. You don't get 5 good answers. You get 5 shallow paragraphs. Depth gets divided, not multiplied. You've asked for a whole consulting engagement and left room for about 1 paragraph each. You wouldn't do this to a human consultant. You wouldn't walk in, list 5 deliverables, and expect quality on all of them by Friday. So, one prompt, one job. Real context. Mobile dog grooming. Austin, solo, $8,000 budget. Then one task, pricing. And notice the last line. We'll do naming after. That's not filler. That's you telling the model this is a conversation with more turns coming, so it doesn't try to cram everything in now. Chain the turns. Don't cram them. Number 5. You have a shape in your head, and you forget the model can't see it. Compare these 3 project management tools. You wanted a table. You pictured a table. You got 6 paragraphs of flowing prose that you now have to read, extract, and reformat by hand, which is work you were trying to avoid. Format, markdown table, the exact rows you care about, a cap on cell length so it stays scannable. And then, this is the nice touch, 1 sentence of recommendation after the table, because a table alone doesn't make a decision for you. Name the format, table, bullets, JSON, an email, a word count. Always. It costs you 4 words. Number 6. If you only take one thing from this video, take this one. Write product descriptions in our brand voice. It's fun, but professional. Okay. Name a brand that would describe itself as not fun and professional. That phrase describes roughly 90% of all companies on Earth. It feels like a specification. It carries no actual information. Now watch. 3 real descriptions from the site, pasted in. Then the rules you pulled out of them. Short sentences, second person, 1 wry aside each, never the word solution. That last one is doing so much work. A single banned word teaches more about a voice than 3 adjectives. So here's the principle. Don't describe the style. Paste the style. 1 example is worth a paragraph of adjectives. This is the single highest leverage thing in this entire video. Number 7. Summarize this 40-page report. Summarize it for whom? To help them do what? Without that, you get even coverage of everything. Every section weighted equally. Nothing prioritized. Which is just a shorter report. That's not a summary. That's compression. A real summary is opinionated. It knows what to throw away. The reader, the CFO. The stakes, 90 seconds before a board call. The priorities, cost overruns and the timeline. Nothing else. An instruction with actual judgment in it. Lead with the number that will surprise her. An explicit cut, skip methodology. And a hard limit, 150 words. State who reads it and what decision it drives. That's what turns compression into a summary. Number 8. And this one isn't about what you type, it's about what you do. You read the output, you don't love it, you close the tab, and you go tell everyone at dinner that AI is overrated. You quit at the exact moment the collaboration was supposed to start. Here's the reframe. You're not a customer, you're an editor. A vending machine transaction is one and done. Editing is notes, revision, notes again. And editors don't say, make it better. They say what's wrong, what's right, and what to leave alone. This is close, that's information. The structure works, but the intro is too slow. Start at paragraph 3. That's a specific, actionable cut. The examples are too corporate, swap them. Direction. Keep the ending exactly as is. Protection. That's a round 2 prompt. And round 2 usually lands. Round 3 is usually done. Number 9. Is my pricing page good? You'll get a friendly, balanced, mostly agreeable review. Some strengths, some gentle suggestions. Comfortable, and completely useless, because you didn't want comfort, you wanted to know what's broken. Act as a skeptical conversion rate consultant. Assume the client will push back on anything vague. Your 3 harshest objections. Each one with a fix and an expected outcome. The word skeptical and the word harshest are doing something specific. They're giving permission for the critique you actually wanted. Now, one honest note, because I don't want to oversell this. Roles are not a magic incantation. Typing, you are a world-class expert at the top of a lazy prompt does not fix a lazy prompt. What a role actually does is set the standard. It tells the model what counts as a good answer here. Specificity still does the heavy lifting. Number 10. And this one is genuinely dangerous because it feels productive. Don't you think launching in Q1 is the smart move? You've preloaded the answer into the question. You'll get agreement. And then, this is the trap, you'll count that agreement as a second opinion. You'll walk into a meeting saying you pressure tested the idea. You didn't. You asked a mirror. Strongest case against, first, then the strongest case for, and then the killer line. Tell me which assumption in my reasoning is weakest and what evidence would change your mind. That's a stress test. The first one was a mirror. If you want a second opinion, don't lead the witness.
Number 11. You upload a 200-row spreadsheet and type 3 words. What do you think? Think about what?
The model will do the only safe thing. Describe your data back to you. You have 18 rows and these columns. Cool. You knew that. You made the file. 3 things happening here. 1. What the file is, 18 months of monthly churn by plan tier. 2. A hypothesis. I think mid-tier is bleeding, but I can't prove it. 3. The actual question. Is that real or is it noise? And then the line I want you to steal. Flag anything in the data that undercuts my theory. That single sentence is the difference between analysis and narration. You've just given it explicit permission to tell you you're wrong. Most people never do that, and then wonder why AI always agrees with them.
Number 12. This one's about the whole conversation, not one message.
You say, fix this function. 12 messages later, you're frustrated. Why doesn't any of this match our style? Because your standing rules live in your head. You never said them out loud. So every single turn, the model re-guesses, and it guesses differently each time. That's not the model drifting. That's you never setting the rules. Set it once, at the top. Python version, framework, type hints, test runner, no surprise dependencies, and a taste rule. Prefer explicit over clever. Now every later turn inherits all of it. Fewer corrections, less drift, less re-explaining. And if you find yourself typing the same setup into every new chat, that's what projects and your preferences settings are for. Say it once, permanently, and stop paying that tax.
Number 13. The one that actually costs people. Great, thanks. And the stat goes straight into the deck, straight into the client email, straight into the thing with your name on it. Here's the problem, and I want to be straight with you about it. Fluent and wrong looks exactly like fluent and right. There's no tell. The confident tone isn't evidence of anything. It's just the register the model writes in. And where it matters most is exactly where you're least likely to check. Specific numbers, names, dates, citations. Which of these are you least confident about and why? Asking directly surfaces the weak points. For anything with a number or a citation, search and give me the source so I can check it myself. Now you can verify instead of hope. Flag anything you're inferring rather than reporting. That draws the line between what it knows and what it guessed. Ask what it's least sure about. Then go check that part yourself. That's it. That's the whole discipline.
Okay. 13 mistakes. Let me compress all of it into one thing you can actually keep. This is the template. And it's not a magic formula. It's just the 6 questions the model would ask you, if it could talk back before answering. Role. Who should it be? Context. What's the situation? Task. One clear job. Format. Shape and length. Example. Show. Don't describe. Guardrail. What to avoid. Now, important. You will not need all 6 every time. What's the capital of France needs none of them. 2 or 3 covers most real work. This is a checklist to glance at when an answer comes back wrong, not a form to fill out every time you open a chat. Screenshot this one. This is the slide worth keeping. If you remember nothing else from the last minutes, remember these 6. Give the context you think is obvious. It isn't. 1 prompt, 1 job. Paste an example instead of describing a style. Name the format and the length. Treat the first draft as a draft and give real notes and ask what it's least confident about. Then go check that part. And here's what I really want to land. Go back and look at any slide in this deck. The bad prompt and the good prompt, That's about 20 seconds of extra typing. 20 seconds. That's the entire difference between the thing you'd throw away and the thing you'd actually use. That's the whole trade. It's not a skill you need to train for 6 months. It's 20 seconds of saying what you actually meant. So do me a favor. Pick one of these, use it on your very next prompt today, and tell me in the comments which one landed. I read them. See you in the next one.